So recently I got one of those jars that you get where it has a lot of notes in them. Like somebody gives you a jar full of love notes or Bible verses, and I really thought it was a great idea as a gift. So I've got one of these jars, and I want to make one of these for a friend of mine. So here's a jar. We'll decorate the lid and everything, but right now I want to work on the verses that we're going to put in here, or the words, or the sentiment, whatever we decide to put in here. I've got some watercolors, and these paints they come like this. They are a travel set. So here's like where you would wet it down and you'd wipe your brush off, and then they're divided out by color, and they're really vibrant and lovely. So I'm going to use them because I think watercolor would be a great way to do this project. And I've got some paint brushes in different sizes. These are all really great for watercolor, and I'm going to use kind of like the medium one. You know, this paper is not very big, and if we're going to cut up this paper, because what I'm envisioning is we're going to put some designs on here, but we're going to write a note, fold it up, and put it in our jar. So we don't want whatever we put on here to be too huge, and we want to leave some space to write. So I'm thinking that I'm going to go with my standard thing that I love to paint, which is florals. So I'm going to activate some of these paints, just get them wet and started here. Start with this lovely green, and I'm just going to draw some vines like that. I don't want to make it too wet. Normally I work with acrylic, but I thought this would be a good watercolor type of project. So when you're working with watercolor, this paper that I have is really perfect for it, and I just kind of found it at a thrift store. It's not really like copy paper. It's not as thick as Bristol paper, but it's thicker than your normal paper. So it's not cardboard, but it's just a thick kind of paper, and it holds on to the watercolor really well. Now you could also use watercolor paper, and you could use any type of paper that you think would work with a design. You don't have to use watercolor. You could use, you know, paint pens. You could use acrylics. You could use whatever you would like. So I'm putting a couple just vines and stuff on here. Then I want to write some stuff. So I'm going to draw another kind of dividing mark with that other darker green, kind of a brownish green, right? And we'll do some other different types of floral elements, different types of leaves. I've continued to work with this same paintbrush, but you could change out, you know, your paintbrush depending on what works for you as far as sizing. So it's really flexible as far as what you work on. You know, you don't have to, you know, if you had construction paper, you could work with acrylic markers and acrylic paint pens. You could do that. You really have some options. So I'm going to continue painting this up, and I'm going all the way down because my intention is to write in here. So I've let this dry just a minute, which is really important when you're putting watercolor on paper. You know, just give it a minute. And what I want to do is add some color in between all these little leaves. And I want to do it fairly light because I would like some space to write in. But, you know, I want to add some color with flowers and, If I need to write over the flower, then that's fine. So I'm gravitating towards this row because I've got this lovely blue, I have a darker blue, I've got this really great gold. So kind of looking at all of these right now and just activating them with water. I have a flat brush. It's a little bit bigger than my other one. I'm going to use that just to create some floral elements. Of course, I'm getting my blue in the white paint. Don't you hate that? You know, just trying to lighten up that blue a little bit because I'm trying to play with a lighter color. And I want to keep it simple, but, you know, give some dimension. Color and line work always give dimension to different things, so that's what I'm working on. I want to keep it really light. You know, if you write over this, you'll still be able to see the floral element, but also you'll know that that's a flower underneath there. Real simple flower. A lot of water on that one. I love that there's white in this set though. I think that's such an important color, white and black, for painting of any type, to use your white and black color. Now you have some white in the blue. That does happen with this type of paint, but you know, you clean it off at the end. This is a great set also for traveling. You know, I take this to, we go to the beach a lot just to look at the water and hang out, and I love taking a little travel set like this just to get some concepts down, some colors down, something different than just your paint markers or something like that. It's a really nice travel set. So I've got these little blue flowers. I'm going to go back to my rounded paintbrush, and I'm going to add just some dots. Of course I've got a lot of water on my paintbrush, so these dots are running together, but I kind of like that, don't you? All right, I agree. I like it. Happy accidents. I'm going to go with it and just make it a little edge on the flower. How about that? Aye. More. It does drift with the water, but so far I'm really liking the effect. That was an accident. If I try and replicate it, it doesn't work as well. Watercolor is just a fun medium for that very reason, because it kind of, the water helps guide the paint, and it blends then kind of on its own. It has that effect where it just moves on its own. It's really lovely. A lot of water right there though. Okay, so I've got these little flowers. I'm going to put those aside for a second. I'm going to work on actually this edge because I don't want to get too close to these other ones. Let that dry, and we're going to see what we're going to put on these ones. So I'm thinking of putting just some simple color next to these little elements, and keep my eye is continuing to be drawn to this kind of gold color, so I'm going to use that over here, and I want to again keep it simple, but just make it interesting enough where there's, you know, color and pattern next to these. kind of going over the ones that I went over that I made before and just adding that gold. And I like the gold with the purple underneath. So you can still see that purple. Add a little bit more water. So I'm trying not to move this edge very much. So let's go in this guy right here. I'm trying to place it where I won't stick my hand and schmutz it. Schmutz is a word, you guys. Let's look at the colors we have here. I haven't really gone much into this red. I'm gonna go back to this one, and I'm really loving this kind of like cherry red. And then I'll activate this other red that's next to it. The cherry red is really beautiful though. So I'm gonna do some berries on this. I'm going in threes, but maybe I'll go more, we'll see. I like just the red and green together on there. Pretty colors together. And you can see how vibrant this set is. I think I picked this up at one of the big box stores, so it's not that hard to find. I'll post a link if I remember so that you can find it. And I believe it was not that expensive either, so we like that. Okay, so now we've got that one, and we've got these lovely flowers. Let's see what we can add to here. This is kind of a olive green color. So we've got this orangey red, which would be pretty, I think. We have all these blues. There's like a purple that we really haven't used. So I might use that. Like a darker purple, darker than that, I think. What does that one look like? A little bit darker. All right, I'm mixing these two together, kind of. Again, these are really simple because what we're doing is just, you know, adding simple floral elements. We're not like making something, you know, making a big painting. We're keeping some white space because we want a lot of space where we can write our little notes. And as we're working on this, we can think about what we want to write. So I'm writing this for a friend. It's her birthday. She's just a lovely, sweet person. So I'm thinking about her. Like, what would I write that she would appreciate? What do I want her to pull out of this jar and read so that it uplifts her? You know, the jar that I got was from my best friend. It's all Bible verses. I pull them out from time to time when I feel like I just need a little bit of something, and it just makes me feel good. It makes me think of her and how much she cares for me, and it makes me think of the words on that verse, and just gives me a little bit of uplift. You know, those days where you need that. And that's what I'm hoping to do with this. So I've got these simple flowers. I'm going to put these all aside right now. Okay, I've got a few paints on my palette. First, I'm putting a light phthalo green in a heavy body. This is one of my favorite colors by Golden to use. It really just covers nicely. And that's what that little blob is. And then I've got some fluid acrylics in various colors, phthalo green, teal, and quinacridone red. I have my jar, which for now I'm going to put off to the side. And I'm going to work on this little cover because I want the cover to be filled with something. rather than these paintbrushes, which I like to use primarily for watercolor, I'm going to use a different paintbrush. This is just kind of a multi-purpose paintbrush from Blix, and it's a size 12 filbert brush. So it's a little bit thicker. And I'm going to use the light phthalo green first because it's so thick. It'll work really as a nice base. Now you could also use gesso for this. Gesso is, you know, inexpensive. It comes in white or clear. It allows you to put a base down then that paint will then adhere to. For this, I'm just choosing this color, but you could do it with the gesso as well. And I'm trying to get in every crevice. I'm trying to be careful not to get on the inside of it. I want, you know, this jar to close, so I don't want to gum it up with paint. But, you know, it's got these little ridges on there, this jar that I've chosen. You can see it if I do that. So I want to get into those ridges and fill them in. And what I'm hoping to do is just add some color, texture, just make this vibrant and pretty so that when she sees it, she will be excited to open up these little notes and see what I've written for her. Now I should also say, you know, this little sheet that is drying that we're going to write on, you could also just keep making different sheets. You can put different designs on there, you know, all kinds of things. And we're going to put a little bit more design on there, but it needs to dry before we do that. But you could, you know, make as many as you need. In this demonstration, I'm only doing one, but I might make more depending on if I have more stuff I want to write out. So I'm working wet into wet on this, which means I'm not going to let time for all this to dry. I'm just going to keep working. And I'm going to get another like smaller paintbrush. The filbert is good for coverage, but let's get a smaller one, a couple smaller ones, okay? Smaller filbert, and this is a smaller round. It's a size 1 round. So both of those are really good for something like this. And I'm choosing fluid acrylic, but you could choose craft paint. You could use anything. You really could use anything. And again, I love to start with leaves. I mean, that just makes me happy to do. So I'm going to do that. And put some rough leaves on here. One side maybe. Get the sides so that each end of this is covered. I'm going to that teal. Make some very tiny little flowers. I find this type of work, you know, very, I think, relaxing. You know, you're thinking of your friend, you're working on something fun. There's no plan to it. You're just experimenting. It's really a good way, good mind space to create in, I feel. So I'm going to keep adding some floral elements, whatever I feel like. Whatever works. If you have a jar that there's writing on, like this one has a raised top where there was the writing for the company on there, the more you paint on there, the more you don't notice that anymore. Like mine is just disappearing as I add these flowers. So whatever jar you have, don't worry about it. I think it's great when you can use something that is considered like throwaway and then add something artistic or beautiful to it, like in an old jar. I mean, what would you do with that normally? But, you know, you can create something new and then give it to a friend, and then it has meaning. That's really cool. I like doing things like that. These flowers kept getting bigger and bigger. Did you notice that? Oop, a little bit wet on that one. I might have to dip some of that excess off. I always keep a paper towel handy. Now the thing about paint, so let's say I get this first layer done and I don't love it, I can always paint over it. Paint is fabulous, you guys. So I'm gonna put some more, see that one's really wet. So I'm gonna add some other things, not with, in fact, my whole brush is wet. Working wet on wet is fine, but this is such a small area. So I'm gonna put some vines and stuff on here with this very small brush. And add some embellishments. When I'm adding things, I'm thinking about the size of this, you know, lid. We don't have a lot of space to work on, so I'm not going to make a detailed type of flower. I want just color and pattern so that this just looks like, you know, something pleasant to look at, something pleasant to the eye. That's what I'm going for. That background is still wet, so I'm careful not to smudge it. I just want it to dry. I can paint over it once it's dry, but I don't want to leave fingerprint marks right now. So I'm just going to continue going around, adding some design to this. And I'll meet you back here and show you the next step. So this is all nice and dry. And the next thing I want to do is go back to these watercolors and just add some color around all this. Okay, just to fill in a little bit so that when we write on these, because that's why we're choosing watercolor, we're going to write on these, and the watercolor allows us to kind of have our pen and our words go easily over it, as opposed to acrylic paint, which is maybe a little bit more challenging to do. We want to do it though with this light coat of something, and we can do it two ways. We can take any one of these colors and put it on there. We're not limited by the vibrancy of the color on here because it's watercolor. So we can reduce it with water, or we can choose actual lightness of tone of the colors. And I love that it has the color definitions on these sides as well. So you know exactly what you're getting with each of these. Really nice set. But since I haven't used the yellow yet, it is one of the lighter colors, but also I haven't used it yet. And I want to do that. So I'm going to take some water. And for this, I have a filbert brush that's slightly bigger than the last one that I used for these leaves. Okay, so it's just a little bit bigger because I want to just get a little bit more pigment on there. And I'm just putting it little by little, and I'm going to work with my paper towel and my water and control the level of pigment I have on here. And I'm going around, and I'm doing it in kind of this messy, imperfect way. Now, this is really just to add color here and there, okay? So I'm not trying to make this perfect. If I wanted this whole thing a certain color, I would have, you know, done a background color and gone over it. I really just want to fill in a little bit so that when the words go on here, because that's going to be the bulk of our art, let's say, is the message that we're going to put on here. That's really the most important thing that we're going to have on here. So it's not even going to be this decoration. The decoration is just meant to give it a little flair, give it a little touch. But, you know, our handwriting, our sentiment, all that is what's going to be the special kind of piece of this. So I'm just going over little by little, trying not to get on the original layer too much, but, you know, just adding a little bit here and there. And what I do is I take the bulk of the pigment that comes right from the set, and then add a little bit of water and kind of smooth it around. So it's very easy, you know, non-scientific method. You don't need to worry about, even if you get it in your previous layer a little bit, it's all not a big deal. This is all just kind of an imperfect piece that will just allow us to express something really sweet and lovely to a friend or family member. That's the part we're going to focus on. So the rest of it is just decoration, and it's something that we want it to be pretty and we want it to look nice. But again, you know, we have to understand what we're making. Now you could make this all kinds of different ways. You could make these sheets that we're doing absolutely perfect. Since we're going to write on them and cut them up, I'm not in that vibe. I kind of just want to add some nice details to them to make them look nice, and, you know, want my words to be the thing that really stands out the most. But this is all just kind of prep work for that. So we've got a nice layer of pigment on here, and add a little bit more water to thin that out. And I'm going to just let that dry, put it to the side. Now let's go back to the lid. This is the lid for our jar. We're going to cut those notes up, put them in here. This lid started out very, you know, plain, and now it's got all this beautiful design on there. But of course I want to make it a little bit more defined. So I'm going to put that aside. And for this, because it's so small, I'm going to use paint pens. These are Posca paint pens. So I have a black, a purple, and a teal. I'm choosing those because I just like the look of them, and I'm going to shake them up, make sure they're ready to go. And I'm going to just add a little bit of detail. I've got the basis on here. This is all very dry. It's really important that you make sure your paint is dry before you add a paint pen. And I'm going to just add a little bit of center dots, a little bit of seeds in those center of those flowers. And the paint pens are perfect for that. You just dab it on. This is acrylic paint in this paint pen. So it's a little bit different than a marker. Goes on differently, dries differently. But you could also use a marker. You could use a Sharpie. You could use, you know, different paint pens. You could use anything that'll give you that definition. You could also use a very small brush and some more acrylic paint. You can do whatever you would like. So I've got those little dots. Let me see what else I want to do here. I have these flowers, and I have also these leaves. And so I want to kind of put some definition on these leaves. So I'm going to outline them because I really like the color that came through. But I want to just outline them. And I'm even going to go on the sides here where I have, you know, the edges of these leaves, the stem. I want to follow that down. I want to make this look like one kind of coherent painting as much as I can, as much as you can on the lid of a jar that's got ridges on it. These ridges I'm going to fill in a little bit. So it's challenging, but look how nice that paint pen goes over those ridges. Very, very nice. And I'm going to add just a little bit of definition on each leaf. So like that. That's nice, right? A little bit more definition. Here's the black pen. Black always adds, black and white always add quite a lot at the end of a painting, whether it's a regular painting or a lid of a jar. So let's go around some of these petals. So I really like the petals. I like how they turned out, but I want to give them a little bit more definition, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it. Outline it, put some more dots. We have a theme of that going on. You know, you could also put solid colors and fill them in with black, but I'm gonna just go around each petal just to give it some definition, because we've got the color in there and we have the base color, and we decided to use a base color of light teal rather than a white gesso. And this is one reason we did that, because as we have this definition that goes further and further in, we have different depths of color, and we can get that a variety of ways. We could have done a white gesso and then done the different colors of the petals over it. You can do it any number of ways. I like that the background is all the same color, so it kind of looks like these are, you know, transparent and flowy. So any way that you want to do it, any way that feels good, you know, as far as the creation of this. Because it's a very small, tiny little painting, but we want to have our friend really enjoy this as much as the notes that we're going to put on there. Okay, so we've got that. Keep going. Just going around. You can tell you know, I work very organically, so I am not like worried about the size of the petals or if they're all like this exact same shape. If you ever look at flowers in nature, in fact, they aren't. They're all different shapes and sizes, and I think, well, if they're that way in nature, and they're beautiful in nature, right? We love looking at flowers, but they're, you know, if you take that inspiration from them, they're not quote unquote perfect, and yet they are stunning. So I like to remember that when I'm working, because some of those, what we consider imperfections, are something that actually make something interesting. So I've got this all outlined. I'm happy with it. And I'm looking at the sides to see if I want to do anything else with that. Now, because I have the black on here, I feel like I want to put some black on the sides. And I'm very limited because I've got these ridges. So what would work? So I want to do a design, like a design element, just like that. Just some design elements that go around. Just swipes of color. So it looks like it's part of the overall picture, you know, the picture of this jar. It's part of the overall design. These are little just random surface marks, like if you were doing a piece of fabrics, this would be all random marks that would help you define your area. So we've got that. I like that, but I kind of want to add a little bit more, like some more sketchy marks. This is very challenging because this thing has just a ton of ridges on the side. Yeah, a little bit more. But I think these little touches do bring everything together. I like it anyway. It makes it look more homemade, you know, more handcrafted type of thing. Oop. I like that so far. I like all these different things that we've added. Now let's take a look again. Take a step back from in fact, if I put it on this, maybe you can see it a little bit better because I have this messy background. So that's what our little tiny painting looks like right now. I love the leaves, but because this black is so striking, I kind of want something that ties it in with this. Now, I don't necessarily want to outline this like I did here. I outlined them already with the teal, but I'm thinking to carry the dot theme down, I'm going to put some dots over the center areas of each leaf. And that way it kind of incorporates with the rest of the picture. It's one way, if you've ever heard somebody say we need these edges to kind of speak to each other, that's what that means. Meaning it's not just random things that are there, it all comes together with completeness, with repetition, or with color. These are ways we bring things together like that. And I'm actually going to put some dots on this stem. Yeah, I think that helps. Okay, I'm happy with this jar lid. I'm going to put it to side, let it dry, because of course it is paint, you guys, and I've even got a little bit in my hands. This all needs to dry, and so I'm going to put that to the side. Okay, so for this, it's all completely dry, and I'm using a Sharpie. This is an ultra fine point. I've got 2 of them here just in case one runs out. I never know the state of my Sharpies when I grab them. So I'm just going to roll this back a little bit. This paper kind of curls up a little bit when it gets moisture. So now that it's dry, we're going to flatten it out. And we're just going to write some notes to our friends. Now I'm going to go this way because then I'm going to cut it this way. So, you know, you can do it any way that you want to do it. I have everything written out. I'm going to take a T-square and I'm going to rip these. I like that look of a ripped sheet. However, I also don't want to, you know, cut into the other words. So I'm going to use this T-square as a guide to help me rip these. So I've got that. And this has 2 messages on here, so let me go. Now again, you could make as many of these as you like. Now I want to actually try and get the edges as much as possible too. Let me see if I can. A little bit tricky, but I can do it. I like that look of that raw edge. You can do as many pieces of this as you want. I mean, you can write as many messages as you want. It's your friend, it's your project. Once you get started, it's just so fun to kind of, you know, think of all these wonderful things that you want to say. And, you know, you might want to do a lot of these. I think it's such a nice kind of like personal gift, right? I like it. These little reminders we can give people of their specialness in our life, because wow, you know, with everything going on in life, sometimes people don't hear that enough. Do you feel like you hear it enough? I don't. And even when you hear it enough, it's like, can you really, you know, take it in to your mind and heart? Someone might say it, but because of everything you're going through, you just can't even digest it. You know what I mean? So the more that we can do that and be those people who lift up others, the better. So I've got all these ripped. I'm going to see how dry. I think this is mostly dry. Then I'm just going to fold these and place them in my jar. And you fold them however, depends on how big your jar is, right? Fold however you need to. The point is that they are able to pull them out and get that little burst of encouragement and love from you. So they've got your handwriting, they have your little design on there. You could also do the backs. I mean, as I'm putting it in here, I'm realizing they're white on the back. You could do the backs. No one is saying you can't. You can decorate this as much as you want. In fact, I think that's lovely if you decorate the back. I'm going to do that for the next one I do. But this is what I'm doing for now. I'm giving this to her this week. And I think she'll like it. And I hope that you decide to do one for someone special in your life so that they can feel appreciated like that as well. So I'm going to put these all in here. And look at that. what a beautiful little gift, right? So I hope that you do that. If you, put it this so you can see it. If you do one of these yourself, let me know. Tag me on social media.